Over the past few decades, Boston's neighborhood commercial centers have been reinventing themselves. Instead of being just for shopping and services, there's more focus on food and culture. In Dorchester, that's what you'll find at the Dot Jazz Series, hosted by Mandorla Music Series and the Greater Ashmont Main Street. The next performance takes place Thursday night at All Saints Church. To tell us what's planned are the producer with Mandorla Music Series, Mark Redmond, and one of the performers, leader of the Bill Lowe Band, Bill Lowe. Thank you, Bill, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Mark. We put this in context here because it sounds a little strange for some people hearing this for the first time. A jazz series hosted, at least co-hosted by Main Street. So what's the reason for that?
Yeah, well, so I'm a former resident of the neighborhood where the concert's going on, and I had known Jen Carte, who's the director of Greater Ashmont Main Street, since our kids were in nursery school together some years ago. I'd been producing jazz concerts across the river in Somerville for a number of years, and was eager to find a way to do more of that closer to home. And Jen and I got talking about it, and learned that she had a similar interest, and things went from there. We did our first concert at All Saints in April of 2017. Jason Palmer brought a fantastic group, and it was so well received that we decided to make it a regular thing. So this is the fourth of what's been a quarterly series from August through May, and we're working on next year already. So.
Bill, in your time, you've played in clubs, you've played at neighborhood locations around Boston with the Maconda Project. What about this location? What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's wonderful for a number of reasons. First of all, it's in a church, so we got to do something right. That's an inside joke. I'll leave that alone. But the idea of being able to play in the neighborhood and to bring the music to the folks rather than the folks going way downtown. Now, this is Boston. Downtown isn't that far away, but there's still that physically, but there's still that notion of this art music is done at this special place. But to bring the music with all of its joy, all of its complexities, right in the neighborhood at a place, we're at Ashmont Station, that's where we are. And I enjoy that. And Maconda Project does the same thing. So it's a very rewarding situation for me to walk down to the grocery store and have, as happened several months ago, have a woman say, "Oh, you're that Kane guy."
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. You're the Kane guy, right? And then I said, "Yes, ma'am." And then turns out her family had a personal connection to the story, to the author.
This is Jean Toomer.
Jean Toomer, yeah. This woman actually lived in the town where Jean Toomer worked as a teacher, or tried to work as a teacher of a school, which became the genesis for this novel, Cain. So she had some things to say.
I hope she comes on Thursday.
Well, I hope so too. But she came to this production we did back in last June, and she had some things to say about the Kane, about the Toomer family and that experience. So when that happens, then you know you're doing the right thing. When somebody stops you on the street and makes a connection to the thing you're trying to produce and share with everybody. And it was her connection, it wasn't mine. We got to talk about it, and she had questions and statements, and that's a whole different realm than just, standing up, putting a production on, and asking people to clap and walking away. This is what I like.
Mark, people think about jazz clubs, these smoke-filled places in the 1950s, but this is a church. What's it like when one of these concerts is going on?
This space is fantastic, and it's a room that people associate with music, because we were talking before the camera came on about the Ashmont Hill Chamber Music Series, which has been going on for some decades, I think, there. Beautiful space, and it feels great in there.
It does.
It's really a good feeling, and it's well suited to music. It sounds good, and it's big enough to accommodate the thankfully nice crowds we've been drawing, but small enough to feel intimate. So it's a great room.
Bill, I want to ask you about the Kane Project, because you focus on part of that book about the teacher going back, sort of reconnecting with the, I guess, the roots of culture, as it were. Isn't that about jazz itself?
Sure is.
As a musician?
Sure is. That connection is about jazz, and the actual words, the language of Toomer's novel I've taught it whatever for the last literally 30 years. No matter what course I teach, I figure out some way to include cane on the syllabus. If I'm teaching, plumbing 303, they're going to read cane at some point. The thing that fascinates me is that, as I often say to my students, is that Toomer's words swing. I don't know any other way to say it. Toomer's words swing. It's a novel, it's literature, it's not poetry, but it is poetry. And interspersed within the novel and the short stories are all these poems, literal poems that Toomer wrote that have a connection. It's the kind of connection where you're reading along, you read your chapter 7, and then there's this poem, and you go, oh, what's that got to do with anything? And then when you get down to chapter 10, you realize that it did have something to do with what you're doing. And it makes you go back, which is exactly what happens with music in general and what happens with jazz in particular. That some involvement now in a piece, some swing now, if we do it right, it connects you either backwards or forwards to something else.
Both.
Yeah.
Mark, I have a feeling we're going to hear a little bit more of this kind of talk at the concert itself, which is, it's better than just listening to a CD or downloading something. So we're going to tell people exactly when and where and what it's like.
Yeah, so Thursday this week, Thursday the 10th, 209 Ashmont Street, Parish of All Saints. It's not in the sanctuary, it's in Peabody Hall. Doors at 7, music at 7:30, little reception at 7. Your ticket gets you some dessert bites, and we'll have some soft drinks and wine available there as well. And tickets can be gotten through my series website, which is mandorlamusic.net. That's MANDORLA music.net. Mandorla is a term from mythology and architecture that refers to the sort of almond-shaped space created when two circles overlap, which is it's a word that sounds good to me, and it feels good for what we're doing, bringing musicians together and ears together with music. So.